Hello, everybody, and we're going to be pausing just for a few weeks until after the Christmas season is over. My sermon series that I've been working on here on why the church is failing, and it saddens me to halt this series. But don't worry, I'll pick right back up where I left off. But I thought for the Advent season we needed to change gears for just a moment to properly commemorate this liturgical season of the church. So the readings come out of Isaiah 64 verses 1 through 9. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I encourage you to do so. But Isaiah in this reading is talking about a hope of Israel, that God would come and tear open the heavens and come down, that God would make his name known to his adversaries, and at the nations would tremble in his presence. And he's having this hopeful plea that there is no one who calls on the name of God or attempts to take hold of God, that God has hidden his face for a time. But he says that we are clay and God is the potter, and we all are the work of God's hands. And he begs God to remember his people in their iniquity forever, that they would always be considered God's people. So the word of God for the people of God. And I encourage you to go and read this passage. It's a very good one out of the prophet Isaiah. But our new sermon series for Advent is called The Sound of Silence, Saintly Wisdom in the Stillness of COVID-19. And I just wanted to take a moment and listen to the silence around us. We have a new world upon us. We have a new Advent and Christmas season upon us, something that is radically different than what we have ever experienced in our lifetimes, any of us. And really the goal of this sermon series is to examine how this silence that has come in our households and our societies can be used in a positive fashion in this Christmas season. How do we transform this season of Advent into something that goes from being in a spirit of pessimism to a spirit of optimism? And I think every year in Advent we come together and we light these 5 candles on the wreath. And I'd encourage you to go and watch my video on the history of Advent if you want to know more about why we do this and how and where it all comes from. But we do this to symbolize certain fruits of the Spirit. And when we do this, we remember the first coming of Christ at Christmas time, but we also have the expectation that Christ will come again, the second coming of Christ. So this is the season that we prepare for this. And this year we might not be able to get together, we might not be able to do all the same things that we normally do in our traditions, but we're still going to celebrate nonetheless. And whether we are trying to protect the elderly, whether the elderly are sequestered in nursing homes, this is all bad situations. But it provides new opportunities. If we are trying to protect each other from sickness, if we are trying to simply prevent sickness, we can't necessarily look at it as, yes, it is bad in a sense, but we also have new opportunities. So I just wanted to take this time and look how these fruits of the Spirit, hope, faithfulness, joy, peace, and love, how we can make these rise up again in our hearts in this year where it's going to be different. And as we are banished away from friends and family and our traditions, our holiday routines, how can we make this a positive experience? And as every one of you know who has met me for 5 minutes, I'm a huge fan of history. And I think the wisdom that you get from your elders and studying your elders is so profoundly important. So I've picked out several saints that I wish to examine their lives and say what can we learn from them? How have these people, these saintly figures who have gone before us, experienced times of this profound silence and tumult in their lives? And some are going to be familiar to you, and some are not. There's going to be St. Nicholas will probably make an appearance, as he often does around the Christmas season. Maybe King Wenceslas, Saint Wenceslas. We'll be looking at some fun figures, and I hope everybody likes this. But I want to really examine their lives and find out how these holy people have provided a northern star that we can steer our course by. And we're going to look at the best and brightest among us, discerning how their examples can make a Christmas season really special for us here and now. And we need to turn this attitude of lamentation that I get everywhere I go. Nobody wants to talk about anything but the virus. We need to turn this attitude and spirit of lamentation into an attitude of opportunity. Things are just different. They're not necessarily bad. And maybe God is even providing us an opportunity to do something different. Maybe God is providing us an opportunity to increase our focus. Maybe God is providing us an opportunity that we don't have to worry about all the hustle and bustle and the 10,000 parties, the 10,000 things that we have to do every Christmas season. Now you don't have to do something every night. You don't have to do something every day. Rather, you have an opportunity instead of an obligation. This year, we can turn our focus onto Christ, who is the reason for the season. And this year, we can spend more time with our family, our immediate family. And this time of year, we can create new traditions. Silence provides us with this opportunity. Silence has allowed us to commune with the divine in ways that we have not done in the past. Silence has given us the opportunity to meditate on the gifts of the Christmas season in a way that we just simply cannot do in the clamorous world that we normally live in. I think silence brings us hope in some ways. Hope for a deeper and more profound relationship with God. We can allow this hope to transform us, or transform into something much greater, which is expectation. There's a difference between hoping for something and expecting something. So if we take the time in this Advent season to prepare as we would in the season of Lent for Easter, if we take time to pray, if we take time to fast, if we take time to commune with God, we should have every hope, even the expectation, for a new transformative relationship with our Creator this year. And I think one of the saints that truly embodies the spirit of hope, the fruit of the spirit of hope, is Saint Monica. And in the silence of her home, she prayed many, many times. Have you ever heard of Saint Monica? I highly doubt it. But this is not surprising. But you have probably heard of her son, who is St. Augustine. Yes, that is the great writer, the doctor of the church, probably the most influential theologian in the history of the church. Well, sometimes people don't remember that for the first 30 years of his life, St. Augustine wasn't even a Christian. As a matter of fact, he was quite a hedonist who delved into the sins of the flesh, enjoyed merrymaking, drinking, and all the things that go with it. And he was a Manichae, actually. He was not a Christian. We won't go into what a Manichae is, but let's just say it was a form of dualistic religion between the dark and the light, much like Star Wars. And this is the religion that he practiced for 30 years. But his mother, Monica, she was a devout Christian. And despite their differences in religion, Augustine and Monica enjoyed a very close and loving relationship. 20 years St. Monica prayed. 20 years she hoped that her son would be converted to Christianity. She more than hoped, folks. She prayed, she fasted, she implored God to give Augustine the grace of the Spirit to change his heart. And finally, at her death, St. Augustine made a conversion to Christianity. He was not St. Augustine at that moment, but he was just Augustine. And it was not through his own actions, but it was through the eternal hope and the silent prayers, the prayers in the silent places over many, many, many years, and the great expectation of a mother that God changed the heart of her son. And Augustine then went on to dive into Christianity and to profoundly change and lead the church in ways that could never have been imagined. Without Augustine, the church would be a radically different place. He was the most prolific theologian at that time, and still really to this day. And he also became a bishop of the city of Hippo in North Africa. So the prayers of someone who loves you can truly change the world, folks. None of this would have happened without the devoted and determined prayers in the silence of a loving mother, St. Monica. The power of prayer is very real. It is with us. It is around us. It can profoundly change the world we live in. So this year, when we find ourselves alone in a silence that we would not normally be in this Christmas season, dwell not on the things that are lost. Instead, dwell on the new opportunities that this has provided us. Who have you hoped for? Who have you prayed for? Who have you hoped might find their way to God? What hope lies in your heart for someone that you dearly love and cherish? Take time in these silent places to pray, to fast, to add in new holiday traditions, to add in new devotionals for the Advent season that you have not done before. Treat this like a mini Lent. Do things to honor Christ. Maybe read the Gospel. Pick the Gospel of John and just sit down and read it. Read one chapter a day in the season of Advent, and you'll have read the whole thing. Maybe add in a little fasting. Don't eat something on Friday. Do something that is devoted, that shows your devotion to Christ. And implore God to give His graces to those who need it. And if you have somebody in mind, be really specific about your prayer. Ask God to give this person the graces to change their heart. And this might not be immediate. You might not see on Christmas Eve, like all the movies that we watch, that there's an immediate transformation. For it took St. Monica 20 years to get the answer that she had prayed for all of her life. Be hopeful, though. Be hopeful. And have the expectation that God can act and God will act. My friends, God has given us an opportunity. Seek God with hope and expectation for a transformation in your life and in the life of others. Amen. Stay safe. Take care. Please like and share this video if you are still watching and you think it has been beneficial to you. Thank you very much and appreciate you watching.